David Walsh had never imagined that explaining what humans ate would become the hardest part of his job. He sat in the conference room of Crossroads Hub, watching alien diplomats debate his species like he was not even there. 6 months had passed since Earth made first contact with the Galactic Assembly. 6 months of tests, scans, and interviews. Now the results were in, and they were completely wrong. "The evidence is clear," Physician Krill announced, holding up a data pad with both of her upper limbs. The Centauran looked like a praying mantis, if that mantis wore a white medical coat and had 6 eyes. "Humans are obligate herbivores. Their biology supports no other conclusion." David raised his hand. "Actually, we're not—" "Please, Negotiator Walsh." Ambassador Rothus interrupted him with a wet, gurgling voice. The Valen's amphibious face showed what David had learned to recognize as pity. "We understand this may be difficult to accept. Many species resist their biological classification at first, but science does not lie." "Your scans are incomplete," David tried again. "If you just let me explain—" "The scans are thorough," Krill insisted, her antennae twitching with certainty. "Observe the evidence. Humans possess predominantly flat molars designed for grinding plant matter. Your digestive tract is unusually long, perfect for extracting nutrients from vegetation. You lack natural weapons such as claws or fangs. Your bite force is weak compared to true predators. These facts speak for themselves." Lieutenant Nina Cross, sitting beside David, clenched her fists under the table. Her jaw was tight, and he could tell she wanted to say something that would probably get them both thrown out. David put a hand on her arm, shaking his head slightly. The conference room held representatives from 24 species. The Draken delegation sat in the back, their scaled bodies radiating barely contained amusement. They were true carnivores with teeth like knives and claws that could tear through metal. Their leader, a warrior named Saren, laughed loud enough for everyone to hear. "Grass eaters," Saren said, his voice a low rumble. "Earth sends us grass eaters and expects to trade as equals." Several other species chittered or hummed in agreement. A few looked sympathetic, which somehow felt worse than the mockery. Ambassador Rothus projected an image onto the central screen. It showed a human body with various parts highlighted in green. "Based on our analysis, humans will be classified as docile traders, Category 7. This classification comes with certain restrictions for your own protection." "Protection?" Nina spoke up despite David's warning look. "What kind of restrictions?" "Standard protocols," Rothus explained, his voice taking on a tone one might use with a child. "Humans will not be permitted on stations with heavy carnivore populations. You will be barred from security and military positions. Your trade routes will be limited to safe zones. These measures exist because your species lacks natural defenses." "We have defenses," David said carefully. "We've survived on our planet for hundreds of thousands of years." Krill's antennae drooped sympathetically. "Yes, on a world that clearly lacks significant predators. Earth's fauna, based on our surveys, consists primarily of small mammals and birds. Your apex predator appears to be something called a bear, which is also an omnivore leaning toward herbivory." David opened his mouth and closed it again. Where did he even start? How could he explain that bears could absolutely kill humans? That Earth had sharks and lions and crocodiles and thousands of other things that would happily eat a person. "Furthermore," Krill continued, "we have concerns about human nutrition on our stations. The commissary will need to stock appropriate foods for your biology. I have prepared a list of recommended vegetation." She sent a file to David's datapad. He scrolled through it quickly. Leafy greens, root vegetables, fruits, nuts, grains. Everything a rabbit might enjoy. Nothing that would actually sustain a human crew long term. "This is inadequate," David said flatly. "Humans require a more varied diet." "I assure you, these recommendations are based on your biological needs," Krill said. "Many species initially resist proper nutrition due to cultural eating habits that may not align with their physiology. We see this often. You will adapt." The meeting continued for another hour. David tried 3 more times to correct the record. Each time he was dismissed politely but firmly. The assembly had made up its mind. Humans were herbivores, docile and weak, in need of protection from the dangerous galaxy around them. When the meeting finally ended, David and Nina walked back to the human quarters in silence. Other crew members looked at them hopefully, expecting good news. David just shook his head. "They don't believe us," Nina said once they were alone in David's small office. "They've decided what we are, and they won't listen to anything that contradicts it." I know. David pulled up the commissary menu on his computer. Already changes were being implemented. Requests for protein shipments from Earth had been denied. Red flags appeared next to items containing meat or fish. A note at the bottom read, "These items are inappropriate for herbivore species and have been rejected for station health and safety." His care package from home was stuck in customs. He had requested it weeks ago, full of simple comfort foods, beef jerky, canned tuna, protein bars, chocolate. Now it sat in a warehouse somewhere, flagged as containing materials unsuitable for human consumption. "What do we do?" Nina asked. David leaned back in his chair, thinking. The assembly was a bureaucracy, and bureaucracies loved their procedures. If they wanted to classify humans as herbivores, they needed evidence to the contrary, clear, undeniable evidence that could not be explained away or ignored. "We request a formal review," David said. "Assembly regulations allow any species to challenge their classification if they can provide proof of error. We demonstrate what humans actually eat, and we do it in a way they cannot dismiss." "A demonstration?" Nina raised an eyebrow. "You mean like, exactly like that?" David smiled for the first time since the meeting. "We show them the truth. No scans, no data they can misinterpret. Just simple, obvious reality." Nina grinned. "They're not going to like it." "Probably not," David agreed. "But they need to see it anyway." For everyone's sake, he began typing up the formal request. It would take time to arrange. The assembly moved slowly, especially when dealing with challenges to their official findings. But David was patient. He had spent 6 months being patient while aliens poked and prodded and made assumptions about his species. He could wait a little longer to prove them wrong. Outside his window, Crossroads Hub stretched in all directions, a massive construct of metal and light where hundreds of species lived and worked together. Somewhere on this station, his care package sat in customs. Inside that package was everything he needed to change the assembly's mind. David just had to get to it first. 3 weeks crawled by while David waited for approval. 3 weeks of eating bland station vegetables that left him constantly hungry. 3 weeks of watching his crew grow irritable and tired from their inadequate diet. 3 weeks of being treated like children who did not understand their own bodies. David walked through the central marketplace, trying to ignore the stares. A group of Velan merchants stopped their conversation as he passed, their bulbous eyes tracking his movement with obvious concern. One of them called out, "Human, you look unwell. Are you getting enough chlorophyll in your diet?" "I'm fine," David said, not slowing down. "Wait." The Velan hopped after him, webbed feet slapping against the metal floor. "I have fresh greens from my homeworld. Very nutritious for herbivores. Good price for you." David forced a polite smile. "Thank you, but I'm not interested. Please, I insist." The merchant pressed a package into David's hands. "Free sample. You are too thin. This will help." The package contained something that looked like purple lettuce and smelled like swamp water. David accepted it because refusing seemed to hurt the merchant's feelings. He would throw it away later, or maybe give it to the station's actual herbivore species who might enjoy it. This happened everywhere he went now, well-meaning aliens offering him vegetables, expressing concern about his health, suggesting dietary supplements. The Centauran medical staff had sent 3 separate messages requesting that all humans come in for nutritional counseling. Nina had deleted them. David entered the commissary and joined the line. The human section had shrunk to 2 shelves in the corner, mostly grains and preserved fruits. A few protein bars had somehow made it through customs, probably because they were labeled as seed and nut mixture, rather than mentioning the whey protein inside. He grabbed 4 of them, knowing they would be gone by tomorrow. Other humans had the same idea. Supply and demand. Negotiator Walsh? David turned to find physician Krill standing behind him, her cart full of what looked like organic matter in various stages of decay. Centauran food. She seemed pleased to see him. "I am glad I found you," Krill said. "I wanted to discuss the upcoming review hearing. I understand you have requested a demonstration of human dietary habits." "That's right. I must advise against this." Krill's antennae drooped with concern. The Assembly's classification is based on solid biological evidence. Challenging it may damage Earth's standing in the galactic community. Species who refuse to accept scientific consensus are often viewed as irrational. David kept his voice level. "We're not refusing science. We're offering additional data that your initial scans missed." "Missed?" Krill's mandibles clicked together sharply. Negotiator Walsh, I personally oversaw your species evaluation. My team conducted comprehensive scans of 17 human subjects. We analyzed your bone density, muscle composition, digestive enzymes, and genetic markers. We did not miss anything. Then you'll have no problem observing our demonstration. Krill's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. What exactly do you intend to demonstrate? What humans actually eat, David said simply. Not what you think we should eat. What we actually consume in our natural diet. Something in Krill's expression shifted. Uncertainty, maybe. And this diet includes foods beyond plant matter? Yes, I see. Krill was quiet for a moment. Negotiator Walsh, I must warn you. If you attempt to consume inappropriate foods as some form of protest, you could become seriously ill. Your digestive system is not designed to process animal proteins. The attempt alone could require medical intervention. David almost laughed. Almost. Instead, he said, I appreciate your concern, physician. I really do. But humans have been eating animal proteins for our entire evolutionary history. I promise you, I'll be fine. Krill did not look convinced, but she nodded slowly. Very well. The demonstration is scheduled for next week. The Assembly has granted you 1 hour to present your case. I will be there, along with medical staff in case of emergency. She left, pushing her cart of rotting vegetation toward the checkout. David paid for his protein bars and headed back to human quarters. Nina met him in the hallway, looking annoyed. Customs rejected the care package again, she said. They're insisting the contents are mislabeled. They think someone made a mistake because there's no way humans actually eat what's inside. What reason did they give this time? Nina pulled up the message on her datapad. Due to the presence of preserved animal tissues, fermented dairy products, and processed proteins, this package cannot be released to herbivore species. Please contact the sender to correct the contents. Preserved animal tissues, David repeated. They mean the beef jerky, and the canned fish, and the pepperoni, and basically everything except the chocolate, which they're also questioning because apparently milk products are strange for adult herbivores to consume. David rubbed his temples. A headache was building behind his eyes, probably from low protein intake. File an appeal. Cite the pending review hearing. Tell them we need the package as evidence. Already did. They said it will take another 2 weeks to process. We don't have 2 weeks. The hearing is in 7 days. Nina grinned suddenly. Then it's a good thing I made friends with a Draken supply officer. Turns out they're not all bad once you get past the whole apex predator thing. He thinks this entire situation is hilarious, by the way. He's willing to help. Help how? Draken eat meat, lots of it. Their commissary is fully stocked with animal proteins. Fresh, frozen, dried, you name it. He said we can buy from their supply until Customs pulls their heads out of their... Nina paused. Until Customs approves our package. David felt relief wash over him. Finally, some good news. That's perfect. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Shopping in the Draken commissary means going into their sector. They've been making jokes about humans being prey animals. It might get uncomfortable. I can handle uncomfortable, David said. I've been handling it for weeks. They walked together to the Draken sector, which occupied the rougher industrial side of the station. The lighting was dimmer here, the temperature warmer. Draken preferred heat. Signs on the walls showed territorial markings in their angular script. The commissary was nearly empty. A few Draken moved between shelves, their scales glinting under the red-tinted lights. They noticed the humans immediately. One of them, a female with dark green scales, approached. Lost little herbivores? She smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. We're here to shop, Nina said firmly. In our commissary? The Draken looked genuinely confused. You eat meat? Yes, David said. The Draken studied him for a long moment, then laughed. It was a deep rumbling sound that made the floor vibrate. The assembly says you are grass eaters, docile and weak, but you come here to buy meat from predators. You are either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both, David admitted. This made the Draken laugh harder. She waved them toward the back. Go ahead. Shop, this I want to see. David and Nina filled a cart with basics. Frozen fish, dried meat strips, canned proteins, real eggs shipped from a Draken farming colony, cheese made from the milk of some 6-legged creature David did not want to think about too hard. It would taste strange, but it was protein. At the checkout, the Draken supply officer Nina had mentioned was waiting. He was massive even for his species, with red scales and scars across his snout. So you are the humans, he said, scanning their items. Saren told me about you. He thinks you are prey animals playing pretend. And what do you think? Nina asked. The officer looked at their cart, then back at them. I think the assembly made a mistake. Prey animals do not walk into predator territory to buy meat. Prey animals do not look me in the eye like you are doing now. He leaned forward slightly. I think humans are more than they appear. I think next week's hearing will be very interesting. He approved the purchase without charging them. A gift, he explained. I want to see what happens when you prove the assembly wrong. It will be entertaining. David and Nina carried their supplies back to human quarters, ignoring the shocked stares from other species. Let them stare. Let them wonder. In 7 days, everyone would understand. Back in his room, David opened a package of dried meat and bit into it. The flavor exploded across his tongue, rich and satisfying in a way the station vegetables never were. His body seemed to sigh with relief, finally getting nutrients it needed. He looked at his calendar. 7 days until the hearing. 7 days until he opened his lunchbox and showed the Galactic Assembly what humans really were. He smiled and took another bite. The Assembly's Grand Hall was designed to hold 500 beings comfortably. Today it held at least 600. Word had spread about the human demonstration, and everyone wanted to see what would happen when the herbivores challenged their classification. Some came out of curiosity. Others came hoping to watch the humans embarrass themselves. A few, like the Draken delegation, came because they suspected something interesting was about to occur. David stood at the presentation platform with his simple brown lunchbox sitting on the table beside him. It had taken 4 days to get customs to release it. Another 2 days of preparation. Now finally everything was ready. Ambassador Rothis called the hearing to order, his amphibious voice echoing through the hall. We gathered today to address the human challenge to their biological classification. Negotiator Walsh, you have requested this review. The floor is yours. David stepped forward, leaving the lunchbox where it was for now. Thank you, Ambassador. I want to start by saying that we appreciate the Assembly's efforts to classify humanity properly. We understand you had limited information to work with. First contact protocols only allow so much examination before it becomes invasive. Rothis looked pleased. Several other diplomats nodded along. Good. Let them think this would be a polite discussion. However, David continued, your classification of humans as obligate herbivores is incorrect. Not slightly wrong. Completely, fundamentally wrong. And today I'm going to prove it. Murmurs rippled through the hall. Physician Krill stood up from her seat in the medical section. Negotiator Walsh, we have been through this. The biological evidence is clear. Your skeletal structure, your digestive system, your lack of natural weapons all indicate herbivorous adaptation. You looked at the pieces but missed the picture, David said. Yes, humans have flat molars. We also have these. He opened his mouth, pulling his lips back to show his teeth clearly. Canines. Pointed teeth designed for tearing meat. They're small compared to some species, but they're there, and they work. Vestigial structures, Krill countered. Many herbivores retain small canines from evolutionary ancestors. That would be true if they were vestigial. They're not. We use them every day. David pulled up a holographic image. This is a human skull. Notice how our teeth are arranged. Incisors in front for cutting, canines for tearing, premolars and molars in back for grinding. This is not a herbivore dental pattern. This is an omnivore dental pattern. Your digestive tract is quite long, another physician called out. Carnivores have short digestive systems. Carnivores do, David agreed. But we're not carnivores. We're omnivores. Our digestive system is a compromise. Long enough to extract nutrients from plants, but not so long that meat spoils before being processed. It's a design that lets us eat almost anything. He pulled up another image. Earth green and blue and beautiful. This is our homeworld. You surveyed it and concluded it was a peaceful place with few predators. Let me correct that assumption. The image zoomed in, showing a savanna. Lions stalked through grass. These are apex predators on our world. They hunt in groups, taking down prey much larger than themselves. Humans coexisted with them for millions of years. Next image, an ocean with a dark shape gliding beneath the surface. This is a great white shark. It can smell blood from kilometers away and has bite force that crushes bone. Humans swim in waters where these live. Another image. A brown bear standing on its hind legs, massive and powerful. This is a grizzly bear. It weighs up to 300 kilograms and can run faster than any human. We share territory with them. The hall had gone quiet. David showed image after image. Crocodiles, wolves, tigers, venomous snakes, spiders, jellyfish. Each one a creature that could easily kill a human. And each one native to Earth. Your world is a death trap, someone whispered. Yes, David said simply. Earth is what we call a Class 7 death world. High gravity. Extreme weather. Temperature swings that would kill most species here. Earthquakes, hurricanes, volcanoes, and thousands of species that consider humans food. But you survived, Rothus said slowly. How? By being adaptable, by eating everything we could find. Plants when they were available, meat when we could get it, fish from the oceans, insects if we were desperate, fungi, roots, berries. We learned to identify what was safe and what was poisonous. We learned to cook food to make it easier to digest. We learned to preserve food for lean times. Our omnivorous diet was not a choice. It was survival. David picked up his lunchbox. The entire hall seemed to lean forward. You classified us based on scans and theories. But theory means nothing against reality. So let me show you reality. He opened the lunchbox. The smell hit the room first. Cooked meat, spices, herbs, several herbivore species recoiled. The carnivores, by contrast, perked up with interest. Inside the lunchbox, carefully packed, fried chicken, golden brown and still warm from the heater. A sandwich with roast beef, cheese, lettuce, and tomato. Hard-boiled eggs, shells removed. Pepperoni slices red and glistening with oil. Beef jerky, tough and dark. A chocolate bar for dessert. This is a typical human meal, David said. Notice the variety. Plant matter, yes, but also meat, eggs, dairy. This is what humans actually eat. Physician Krill had gone very still, all 6 eyes fixed on the lunchbox. You cannot possibly digest all of that. Watch me, David picked up the chicken. The sound of his teeth crunching through the crispy skin echoed in the silent hall. He chewed slowly, deliberately, making sure everyone could see. He swallowed. Then he took another bite. Stop, Krill said weakly. You will make yourself ill. David took a third bite, then set the chicken down and picked up the sandwich. He bit into it, the meat and cheese and vegetables combining in his mouth. It tasted incredible after weeks of bland station food. Ambassador Rothus looked like he might be sick. His skin had turned a pale gray color. This is barbaric. This is human, David corrected. He ate a slice of pepperoni, then a piece of jerky, tearing it with his teeth. We are predators, Ambassador. Not apex predators, not the strongest or fastest, but predators nonetheless. We hunted on our world for hundreds of thousands of years. We still hunt. The scans, Krill said, but her voice had no force behind it. The scans showed what you expected to see. You looked for confirmation of your hypothesis instead of remaining objective. You saw flat molars and assumed herbivore, ignoring the canines. You saw long digestive tract and assumed plant eater, ignoring that it's shorter than true herbivores. You saw forward-facing eyes and thought we watched for predators when actually we needed depth perception to track prey. David pulled up one more image. Humans running across a plain chasing an antelope. The animal was faster, but the humans did not stop. They ran for hours. The antelope eventually collapsed from exhaustion and the humans killed it. This is persistence hunting, David explained. Humans are not fast, but we have incredible endurance. We can run for hours without stopping. We chase prey until it literally cannot run anymore, then we kill it. No other species on our planet can do this. It's uniquely human. Saren the Draken stood up from the back row. The human speaks truth. Look at his eyes. Forward-facing, both pointing the same direction. This is predator vision. How did we miss this? Because you were not looking for it, David said. You assumed humans were weak because we have no claws, no fangs, no venom. But we did not need them. We made tools. We created weapons. We used our intelligence instead of our bodies. He ate one of the hard-boiled eggs, then broke the chocolate bar and took a bite. Even our recreational foods contain animal products. This chocolate has milk in it. We are possibly the only species that continues to consume dairy products into adulthood, because we can. Because our bodies adapted to digest almost anything. The hall erupted into noise, species arguing with each other, physicians pulling up data on their datapads, diplomats demanding explanations. Ambassador Rothus tried to restore order, but his voice was lost in the chaos. David waited. He finished his meal calmly, packing the empty containers back into his lunchbox. His stomach felt comfortably full for the first time in weeks. Real food, proper nutrition. His body was already processing the proteins, converting them to energy and building blocks for cells. Finally, Rothus managed to quiet the room. He looked at David with something approaching respect, though shock still dominated his expression. Negotiator Walsh, you have certainly given us much to consider. The Assembly will need to review this new information and reassess our classification of humanity. Take all the time you need, David said. But while you're reviewing, I suggest you lift the dietary restrictions on humans immediately. My crew needs proper food, not the rabbit pellets you've been offering us. Krill approached the platform, her antennae drooping. I owe you an apology, Negotiator Walsh. I made assumptions based on incomplete data. I saw what I expected to see rather than what was actually there. This is a failure of scientific method. Apology accepted, physician. And for what it's worth, I don't blame you. We're a strange species. We don't fit neatly into any category. We're not quite predator, not quite prey. We're survivors. David picked up his lunchbox and walked out of the grand hall, leaving 600 stunned aliens behind him. The assembly chamber felt different when David entered it 3 days later. The casual dismissiveness was gone, replaced by something between wariness and curiosity. Species that had previously offered him vegetables now kept their distance. A few nodded respectfully. Others simply stared. Ambassador Rothus had called an emergency session to address the human reclassification. The entire diplomatic corps was required to attend. David sat in the human section with Nina and the rest of his crew, waiting for the proceedings to begin. Physician Krill took the floor first. Her antennae were steady now, her posture professional despite the obvious embarrassment of her earlier mistake. I have completed my review of human biology based on the new evidence provided. My original assessment was flawed in several critical ways. She projected a human skeleton into the center of the chamber. First, the dental structure. While I noted the flat molars, I dismissed the canines as vestigial. This was incorrect. Human canines are functional tearing teeth, smaller than obligate carnivores but effective nonetheless. The dental pattern clearly indicates omnivorous adaptation. The skeleton rotated, showing the skull from multiple angles. Second, the eye placement. I interpreted forward-facing eyes as a defensive adaptation, allowing humans to watch for predators. This was backwards. Forward-facing eyes create binocular vision, which is essential for judging distance. This is a hunting adaptation. Prey species have eyes on the sides of their heads for maximum field of view. A murmur ran through the chamber. Several species shifted uncomfortably. Third, the digestive system. Yes, humans have a relatively long digestive tract compared to pure carnivores. However, it is significantly shorter than true herbivores. A comparison shows that humans fall directly in the middle, which is consistent with omnivorous species. Krill paused, her mandibles clicking softly. I also failed to test for the presence of certain enzymes. Humans produce proteases specifically designed to break down animal proteins. This enzyme production is not found in herbivores. Rothus spoke up from his seat. Physician Krill, are you saying the Assembly's entire classification was wrong? Yes, Ambassador. Completely wrong. Humans are not herbivores. They are opportunistic omnivores from what we now recognize as a Class 7 deathworld. They should be reclassified immediately. A delegate from the Floravan species stood. They were plant-based beings themselves, living vegetation that fed through photosynthesis. If humans are predators, should we not be concerned? They are being integrated into our stations and trade routes. Are we in danger? David had expected this question. He stood and Rothus nodded permission for him to speak. You are not in danger from humans. Yes, we evolved as hunters. Yes, we eat meat. But we are also social beings who understand laws and cooperation. We have not been eating other species on this station and we will not start. But you could, the Floravan insisted. Physically, you could. Physically, those Draken in the back row could tear this chamber apart, David pointed out. Physically, the Valen could poison the water supply with their skin secretions. Physically, the Centaurans could slice through hull plating with their limbs. Every species here has the capacity for violence. What matters is choice. Saren the Draken stood up from his seat, his massive frame drawing attention. The human is correct. We Draken are apex predators. We have teeth and claws that can kill easily, yet we follow assembly law. We trade peacefully. We do not hunt other species, though we could. The humans are the same. They are predators who choose civilization. This seemed to calm some of the nervous delegates, but a new voice spoke up from the security section. If humans are predators, they should be allowed to serve in security positions. The previous restrictions were based on the assumption that humans were too weak for such roles. This is clearly not the case. Nina perked up at that. David saw her trying to hide a smile. Ambassador Rothus looked uncomfortable. The matter of human capabilities in combat roles is something we should discuss carefully. We do not yet understand the full extent of human physical abilities. Then allow me to clarify, David said. He pulled up a new set of images. Humans evolved on a high-gravity world. Earth's gravity is 1.2 times standard. We have been living and working in your standard gravity for months now. Everything feels lighter to us here. We are stronger in this environment than we are at home. He showed a video of human athletes, running, jumping, lifting weights. Human muscle density is higher than most species represented in this chamber. We are built for endurance and adaptability. We can survive in temperature ranges that would kill many of you. We can hold our breath for several minutes. We heal quickly from injuries. And yes, we can fight. Are you threatening us? Someone asked. No, I am informing you. The assembly wanted to protect us because you thought we were weak. We are not weak. We are survivors from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We made it to space not because we are the strongest or the fastest, but because we are stubborn and we adapt. Physician Krill brought up additional data. My revised report includes information about human medicine. Humans regularly consume substances that would be toxic to most species. Caffeine, which is a nerve toxin. Alcohol, which is literally poison. Capsaicin, which triggers pain receptors. They consume these things recreationally. They drink poison for fun? A delegate sounded horrified. Our bodies process these substances without harm, David explained. In moderation. It is another aspect of our adaptability. Earth has so many toxic plants and animals that we evolve strong livers and kidneys to filter out toxins. This same system lets us enjoy things that would hospitalize other species. A trade minister from the Pelian delegation raised a tentacle. This changes our understanding of human trading capabilities. If humans can survive in hostile environments that other species cannot, they could access resources and routes previously considered too dangerous. Exactly, David said. We are not asking for special treatment. We are asking to be evaluated based on our actual abilities, not on assumptions about what we should be able to do. The debate continued for hours. Species argued about what the new classification should be. Some wanted humans labeled as predators with all the restrictions that implied. Others suggested omnivores, which was accurate but did not capture the full picture. A few proposed deathworld survivors as a new classification entirely. Finally, Rothus called for order. This assembly must make a decision. Physician Krill, what is your recommendation for human classification? Krill stood, her posture formal. Based on comprehensive review, I recommend humans be classified as unrestricted omnivores, Class 3 adaptable. This classification allows full trade rights, security positions, and access to all standard station facilities. It also notes their deathworld origin, which explains their unusual resilience. Class 3 adaptable, Rothus repeated. That is the same classification as the Draken. Yes, Ambassador. Because despite being very different species, humans and Draken share key characteristics. Both are predators who choose civilization. Both are physically capable of violence but restrain themselves through social bonds. Both come from harsh worlds that demanded adaptation. The classification fits, Saren laughed, a deep rumbling sound. I approve. The humans have earned this. Rothus looked around the chamber. We will vote. All in favor of reclassifying humans as unrestricted omnivores, Class 3 adaptable? More than 2/3 of the delegates voted yes. Some voted no. Mostly herbivore species who were still uncomfortable with the idea of predators living among them. A few abstained, but the majority was clear. The motion passes, Rothus announced. Humanity is hereby reclassified. All previous restrictions are lifted immediately. He turned to David. Negotiator Walsh, on behalf of the Galactic Assembly, I apologize for the error in our initial classification. We treated your species poorly based on flawed assumptions. This was unacceptable. David stood and bowed slightly. Apology accepted, Ambassador. We understand that first contact is complicated. What matters is that we got it right eventually. As the session ended and delegates filed out, David felt tension he had been carrying for months finally release. It was done. Humans were properly classified. The restrictions were gone. His crew could finally get real food, real jobs, real respect. Nina punched him lightly on the shoulder. We did it. We did, David agreed. Now comes the harder part. What's harder than convincing the entire galaxy they were wrong about us? David smiled. Living up to their new expectations. They think we are Deathworld survivors now. We need to prove we are also good neighbors. Lieutenant Nina nodded. We can do that. We're adaptable, remember? That we are, David said. That we are. Outside the chamber, David saw Physician Krill waiting. She approached slowly, her antennae lowered in a gesture he had learned meant respect or apology. Negotiator Walsh, I wanted to speak with you privately. Of course. Physician, I have been thinking about my mistakes. I am a scientist. I should have questioned my assumptions. I should have looked deeper. Instead, I saw what I expected to see and stopped investigating. This is inexcusable. You are being too hard on yourself, David said gently. You had limited information and made the best conclusions you could. No, Krill said firmly. I had enough information to know I needed more information. I ignored the gaps in my data because filling them would have been inconvenient. I will not make this mistake again. She paused. I would like to write a paper about this experience, about the dangers of assumption in xenobiology. Would you be willing to contribute? I would be honored, David said. And physician, thank you for admitting your mistake. That takes courage. Krill's antennae rose slightly. It is simply what is right. Science without honesty is worthless. She turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. I am curious about human food. Would you be willing to share a meal sometime? I would like to understand your culture better. David grinned. Absolutely. Fair warning, though, some of it might seem strange to you. I am a scientist, Krill said. Strange is interesting. As she walked away, David felt hope for the future. Understanding between species was possible. It just required honesty, patience, and occasionally, opening a lunchbox. 2 weeks after the reclassification, David found himself standing in front of the Assembly's Grand Hall again. This time, he was not there to defend humanity. He was there to explain it. The Assembly had requested a full briefing on Earth and human capabilities. They wanted to understand what they were really dealing with. The hall was packed again, but the atmosphere was completely different. Species leaned forward with genuine curiosity instead of dismissive amusement. Datapads were ready to record information. Scientists sat in the front rows, eager to learn. Ambassador Rothus introduced him with considerably more respect than last time. Negotiator Walsh has agreed to provide us with comprehensive information about Earth and human evolution. This data will be added to the official records and made available to all member species. Negotiator, please proceed. David activated the holographic display. Earth appeared in the center of the chamber, rotating slowly, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. Earth is classified as a Class 7 death world, David began. For those unfamiliar with the term, this means it is extremely hostile to most forms of life. Let me explain why. The image zoomed in on Earth's surface. First, gravity. Earth's gravity is 1.2 times galactic standard. For species adapted to standard gravity, this means everything weighs more. Your own body weighs more. Moving is harder. Simply standing upright requires more effort. Humans evolved in this environment. It is normal for us. He showed images of human children playing, running, jumping. Notice how easily they move. This is because they are adapted to high gravity. When we come to stations with standard gravity, we are effectively stronger and faster than we would be at home. Second, atmospheric composition. Earth's atmosphere is 21% oxygen. This is extremely high. Most species in the assembly breathe atmospheres with 12 to 15% oxygen. Higher oxygen levels support faster metabolisms and more active lifestyles, but they also increase fire risk and oxidative stress on cells. A scientist in the front row raised a limb. How do humans survive oxidative stress with such high oxygen exposure? We have very efficient antioxidant systems, David explained. Our cells are constantly repairing damage from oxygen. It is one reason we age the way we do. But it also means we can sustain high activity levels that would exhaust species from lower oxygen worlds. He changed the image to show Earth's weather patterns. Third, climate variability. Earth's axial tilt creates extreme seasons in many regions. Temperatures can range from -89 degrees Celsius to +57 degrees Celsius. Most species in the assembly evolved on worlds with stable climates. Earth forced us to adapt to constant change. Images flashed by. Humans in Arctic gear trudging through snow. Humans in deserts shielding their faces from sun and sand. Humans in rainforests navigating dense vegetation. We learned to survive everywhere. We created clothing, shelter, and tools to protect ourselves from environments that should have killed us. Fourth, natural disasters. The display showed hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis. Earth is geologically active and meteorologically violent. Storms that would devastate most worlds are routine for us. We build structures to withstand them. We predict them. We survive them. The chamber was utterly silent. Every being present was focused on the images of Earth's fury. David continued, "Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, Earth's biosphere is intensely competitive. Let me show you what I mean." The display showed a food chain. Plants at the bottom, herbivores eating the plants, predators eating the herbivores, apex predators at the top. This is a simplified version. The reality is far more complex. On Earth, everything is trying to eat everything else or avoid being eaten. This created an evolutionary arms race that lasted billions of years. He showed footage of a cheetah chasing a gazelle. The gazelle dodged and weaved incredibly fast. The cheetah matched every move even faster. Prey evolved speed and agility. Predators evolved to be even faster. Prey evolved better senses. Predators evolved stealth. This cycle repeated endlessly, creating species that are far more dangerous than anything on most worlds. Where do humans fit in this system? Physician Krill asked. Everywhere, David said. That is the key to understanding us. We are not specialized. We are generalists. We are not the fastest, but we can run for hours. We are not the strongest, but we are strong enough. We are not the best at any single thing, but we are decent at everything. This flexibility is what let us survive. He showed images of early humans. Our ancestors were not impressive. No claws, no fangs, no armor, no venom. We were slow compared to predators. We were weak compared to large herbivores. We should have died out. But we had 3 advantages: intelligence, endurance, and social cooperation. The images showed humans making tools, sharpening stones into blades, crafting spears, creating fire. We used our intelligence to make up for our physical limitations. We made weapons that were sharper than claws. We made fire that scared away predators. We made traps that could catch prey without us being in danger. Next image, humans running across a plain, chasing an antelope. We used our endurance to hunt in ways no other species could. Persistence hunting. We chased prey for hours until it collapsed from exhaustion. The prey was faster in a sprint, but we could jog forever. Our bodies are incredibly efficient at long-distance running. Humans can literally run until we die, and we have done this to catch food. Finally, images of human tribes. We used social cooperation to survive threats that would kill individuals. A lone human is vulnerable. A group of humans is dangerous. We communicate complex ideas. We plan strategies. We work together to bring down prey much larger than ourselves, or defend against predators that outclass us individually. David paused, letting the information sink in. This is why we eat both plants and meat. We cannot afford to be picky. When prey is scarce, we eat plants. When plants are scarce, we hunt. When both are scarce, we eat insects, fish, fungi, anything we can digest. This adaptability kept us alive. A delegate from a peaceful herbivore species spoke up nervously. You paint a picture of a nightmare world. How did you develop civilization in such an environment? Because of it, not despite it, David answered. The challenges forced us to innovate. We had to be clever to survive. We had to cooperate to thrive. Every problem Earth threw at us, we found a solution. Extreme cold, we made fire and clothing. Dangerous predators, We made weapons and shelters. Food scarcity? We learned to farm and domesticate animals. He showed images of human cities. We did not just survive Earth. We conquered it. We built civilizations in every climate zone. We sailed across oceans. We climbed the highest mountains. We explored the deepest caves. We went to places that should have been impossible, and we made them home. Saren the Draken stood up. The human speaks truth about death worlds. My own homeworld is Class 5. I understand the pressure such worlds create, but I have a question. You mentioned domesticating animals. What does this mean? David smiled. It means we took wild species and bred them to live with us. We domesticated plants for food. We domesticated animals for labor, transportation, and companionship. Some of these animals were predators themselves. He showed images of dogs. This is a domesticated wolf. Wolves are pack hunters, intelligent and dangerous. Humans befriended them thousands of years ago. Now they live in our homes, protect our families, and work alongside us. We took an apex predator and made it our partner. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The idea of befriending a predator species was apparently unheard of in most cultures. We also domesticated herbivores, David continued, showing cattle, horses, sheep. We raised them for food, milk, wool, and transportation. We managed entire ecosystems, deciding which species thrived and which did not. This is another aspect of human nature. We do not just adapt to our environment. We change the environment to suit us. Physician Krill was typing rapidly on her datapad. This explains so much about human psychology. You are not content to simply exist in an environment. You must control it. Not control, David corrected gently. Work with it. We learned that trying to completely control nature leads to disaster, but we can cooperate with it, guide it, shape it. This is what we do on space stations too. We adapt to the rules and customs here, but we also bring our own ideas and methods. We find a balance. He changed the display one final time, showing human achievements. Spacecraft, satellites, space stations, robotic explorers on other planets. We made it to space despite Earth's high gravity. We explored our solar system despite deadly radiation and extreme distances. We developed faster than light travel despite having no natural aptitude for advanced physics. We did these things because we are curious, stubborn, and adaptable. What else can humans do? A scientist asked. What other capabilities should we be aware of? David thought for a moment. We heal quickly from injuries. We have excellent hand-eye coordination and throwing accuracy. We can learn almost any skill with practice. We form strong emotional bonds with other species. We create art, music, and stories. We ask questions constantly. We explore because we want to know what is over the next hill, around the next corner, in the next star system. He looked around the chamber at all the different species present, but most importantly, we value cooperation. Yes, we are predators. Yes, we come from a death world. Yes, we can be dangerous. But we choose to be peaceful. We choose to trade instead of raid. We choose to make friends instead of enemies. This is what makes us human. The briefing lasted another 2 hours. David answered hundreds of questions about human biology, culture, history, and capabilities. By the end, he was exhausted but satisfied. The assembly finally understood what humanity was. As the crowd dispersed, Ambassador Rothus approached. That was enlightening, Negotiator Walsh, and somewhat terrifying if I am being honest. I understand, David said. But remember, we are not trying to be scary. We are just trying to be ourselves. And who you are is quite remarkable, Rothus said. I have been thinking. The assembly needs species who can handle difficult situations, species who can trade in dangerous regions, negotiate with hostile parties, explore unknown territories, species like humans. Are you offering us opportunities? David asked. Many opportunities, Rothus confirmed. Your deathworld origin makes you valuable in ways we never anticipated. I suspect humanity will do very well in the galactic community. David smiled. That's all we wanted. A fair chance. You have earned far more than that, Rothus said. You have earned respect. 6 months had passed since the reclassification. David walked through the Crossroads Hub marketplace and marveled at how much had changed. The human section of the commissary now occupied an entire aisle, stocked with foods from Earth and compatible items from other worlds. Human crew members moved freely through all sectors of the station, no longer segregated to safe zones. The patronizing comments had stopped. The nervous looks had mostly faded. Well, mostly. David nodded to a group of Velan merchants as he passed. They nodded back respectfully, though one still clutched his merchandise a little tighter. Old habits died hard. David did not blame them, learning that the species you thought were harmless herbivores were actually omnivorous predators. From a death world took time to process. He was heading to the assembly offices for a meeting when he spotted Physician Krill outside the medical center. She waved him over with one of her upper limbs. Negotiator Walsh, perfect timing. I wanted to show you something. She led him inside to her office, which had changed significantly. Previously sparse and clinical, it now contained items from dozens of different worlds. Artifacts, art pieces, food samples in stasis containers, a collection of cultural objects. I have been traveling, Krill explained, gesturing to the items, visiting homeworlds of different species, studying their biology and natural environments rather than relying solely on scans. Your demonstration taught me an important lesson about the limitations of laboratory analysis. This is impressive, David said, examining a crystalline structure that seemed to pulse with inner light. What's this? A Floraven seed pod. In laboratory conditions, it appears dormant. In natural sunlight on their homeworld, it blooms into a completely different form. I would have missed this if I had not gone to see for myself. Krill's antennae drooped slightly. I would have missed many things. You're being too hard on yourself again, David said. You learned from your mistake. That's what matters. Perhaps. Krill pulled up a file on her datapad. Speaking of learning, I have been conducting follow-up studies on human capabilities. I hope you do not mind. But I have been observing the human crew members with their permission. The results are fascinating. She showed him data, charts and graphs tracking human performance in various activities. Your people adapt to lower gravity remarkably quickly. After just a few months on the station, humans show improved strength, speed, and coordination compared to Earth baseline. Your bodies are compensating for the reduced gravity by becoming more efficient. Makes sense, David said. We're adaptable. More than I realized, Krill agreed. I have also been studying human social behaviors. Did you know that humans have formed friendships with members of 43 different species on this station? 43. That is more than any other species has managed. David smiled. We're social creatures. We like making friends. It goes beyond that, Krill insisted. Humans seem to have an unusual ability to understand and empathize with species, very different from yourselves. You form emotional connections easily. This is rare in the galaxy. Most species prefer to socialize primarily with their own kind. She showed him footage from the station's common areas. Humans sitting with groups of aliens, sharing meals, laughing together. Nina playing some kind of game with 3 Draken. All of them intensely competitive but clearly enjoying themselves. A human engineer teaching a Centauran how to use a tool from Earth. Humans integrate, Krill said. Other species coexist. There is a difference. Before David could respond, his communicator chimed. Ambassador Rothus requesting his presence immediately. David excused himself and headed to the assembly offices. Rothus met him in a private conference room along with several other high-ranking officials. The atmosphere was serious but not hostile. David sensed opportunity rather than trouble. Negotiator Walsh, thank you for coming on short notice, Rothus began. We have a situation that requires human expertise. He projected a star map. A remote system near the edge of assembly space, colored red to indicate danger. This is the Velix system. Rich in rare minerals, strategically important and completely unexplored. 3 survey teams have attempted to assess the system. All 3 failed. Failed how? David asked. The primary planet Velix 4 is what you would call a death world, another official explained. She was Pelian, all tentacles and bioluminescent patterns. Class 6, nearly as dangerous as Earth. High gravity, toxic atmosphere in some regions, extreme weather, aggressive native life. The survey teams could not establish a foothold. They retreated after suffering equipment failures and injuries. David studied the data. Gravity 1.3 times standard. Atmosphere breathable but with high carbon dioxide levels. Temperature swings of 40 degrees between day and night. Native life forms that were large, territorial, and apparently very hostile to visitors. You want humans to survey it? David said. We want to hire human contractors, Rothus corrected, at premium rates with full support and resources. Your people are the only ones who might succeed where others failed. David pulled up more information. The planet was genuinely dangerous, but nothing humans could not handle with proper equipment and planning. It was actually less hostile than some regions of Earth. I'll need to discuss this with my crew, David said. But provisionally, yes. We can do this, Rothis looked relieved. Excellent. This is exactly the sort of opportunity we hoped humanity would be interested in. There are others as well. Security contracts for dangerous trade routes, rescue operations in hostile environments, exploration of uncharted regions. Humans are uniquely qualified for these tasks. Because we're from a death world, David said. Because you are survivors, Rothis replied. Because you do not give up when things become difficult. Because you adapt. The meeting continued for another hour, discussing logistics and contracts. By the end, David had commitments for 6 different projects, all of them well paid and exactly the kind of work humans excelled at. Work that other species could not or would not do. As David left the office, he nearly collided with Saren in the hallway. The Draken caught him easily with one clawed hand steadying him. Apologies, human, Saren rumbled. I was not watching where I walked. No harm done, David said. Actually, I'm glad I ran into you, literally. I wanted to thank you for supporting us during the reclassification debate. Saren's eyes glinted with amusement. I spoke only truth. You earned respect. He paused. There is something I have been meaning to ask. Would you spar with me? David blinked. Spar? Combat practice. Nothing serious, just training. My people believe the best way to understand a species is to fight alongside them or against them. I wish to understand humans better. This was probably a terrible idea. Saren outweighed David by at least 50 kilograms and had natural weapons that could shred flesh. But refusing might be insulting, and honestly, David was curious too. Sure, he agreed. When and where? Tomorrow, the security training center. I will use practice weapons and restrain my strength. This will be educational, not dangerous. The next day, David found himself in the training center wearing padded armor and holding a practice baton. Saren wore similar padding, though his was reinforced in places to account for his scales and claws. A small crowd had gathered to watch, including Nina and several other humans. Ready? Saren asked. David nodded. They circled each other. Saren moved first, a testing strike that David barely blocked. The impact jarred his arms even through the padding. Saren was holding back considerably, and he was still incredibly strong. But David was faster in the lower gravity. He ducked under Saren's next strike and tapped the Draken's side with his baton. A point. Saren laughed, delighted. Good, again. They sparred for 20 minutes. David lost most exchanges but landed enough hits to make it interesting. His endurance showed as Saren began to tire while David maintained his pace. Different evolutionary strategies playing out in real time. Finally, they stopped, both breathing hard. Saren removed his helmet and grinned, showing all his teeth. You fight well for a species without claws. Your kind would have made worthy rivals on my homeworld. I'll take that as a compliment, David said. It is the highest compliment a Draken can give. Saren extended a clawed hand. David shook it carefully. I would be honored to fight beside humans if the need ever arises. Let's hope it doesn't, David said. But if it does, we'll be there. That evening, David organized a gathering in the human quarters. A celebration of how far they had come. The room was packed with humans and aliens alike. The food table held dishes from a dozen different worlds, including several human favorites that had become popular with other species. Nina was teaching a group of young Centaurans how to play cards. Physician Krill was deep in conversation with 3 human scientists about comparative biology. Saren sat in a reinforced chair, trying human beer and making faces at the taste while humans laughed and offered alternatives. Ambassador Rothis appeared at David's elbow, holding a plate of food David had prepared for him. The Valen was cautiously trying different items, his face showing surprise at each new flavor. This is remarkable, Rothis said, gesturing to the room. 6 months ago, most of these species would not have attended a human gathering. Some were afraid. Others were dismissive. Now look at them. David watched his crew and their alien friends sharing food, stories, and laughter. Turns out we're not so scary once people get to know us. Oh, you are still scary, Rothis corrected with what might have been a smile. But now we understand that being scary and being good neighbors are not mutually exclusive. You are predators who choose kindness, survivors who choose cooperation. This is why humanity will thrive in the galactic community. We're just being ourselves, David said. Yes, and yourselves is quite enough. Rothus sampled a piece of cheese, made an appreciative sound. I must ask, is this made from animal milk? It is. Fascinating. The flavor is complex, intense but not unpleasant. He took another piece. I am beginning to understand why you eat such a variety of foods. Each item is an experience, David smiled. That was perhaps the best summary of human cuisine he had heard. Each food was an experience, a story, a piece of culture, and by sharing their food, humans shared themselves. The party continued late into the station's night cycle. People came and went, but the common thread was connection, different species learning about each other, finding common ground despite vast differences. As the crowd finally began to thin, David found himself standing by the window, looking out at the stars. Nina joined him. Thinking deep thoughts? She asked. Just reflecting, David said. When we first got here, I was frustrated, angry that they would not listen to us, insulted that they thought we were weak. And now I understand it was never about weakness. They genuinely thought they were helping us. They made mistakes, but their intentions were good. And once they learned the truth, they adjusted. That's all we can ask for. Nina nodded. We proved ourselves. Now we get to do the interesting work. The dangerous work, David corrected. Same thing. Nina grinned. Humans don't do boring. We're deathworlders, remember? We like a challenge. David laughed. That we do. He looked around the room one more time. Physician Krill was carefully packing away samples of human food to study. Saren was arm wrestling a human security officer, both of them straining and laughing. Ambassador Rothus was learning a human card game, his concentration intense. This was humanity's place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or victims, not as the strongest or the weakest, as partners, as friends, as the adaptable ones who could bridge gaps between very different species. All because David had opened a lunchbox and shown the truth. Sometimes the smallest actions had the biggest consequences. A simple meal had changed everything. It revealed what humans really were and forced the galaxy to see them clearly. No more assumptions. No more misunderstandings. Just honest recognition of who and what humanity was. David raised his drink in a quiet toast to himself. To his crew. To every human working to build a place for humanity among the stars. They had earned respect the hard way through patience and proof. Now they would earn trust through action and cooperation. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders. Humans would explore it, learn from it, and contribute to it, not as herbivores or predators or any simple category, as humans. Complex, adaptable, stubborn, curious, social, and endlessly innovative. That was enough. That would always be enough. Outside the window, stars beckoned. There were worlds to explore, species to meet, challenges to face, and humans as always would adapt. They were survivors. It was what they did best.